So hello everybody again. This is a pleasure to present Esther Sebastian, that is giving the first talk. Esther is a researcher in ecology, but with, in a multidisciplinary way. He's collaborating with us in project, or we are collaborating with her in a project related with natural parks and the use of machine learning, artificial intelligence for sustainability and tourism. And research, Esther had been in Stanford, in Hawaii, researching with top 1 people. He will give you a very nice talk. Thank you for coming, Esther.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the Escuela Politécnica, and especially to Jose Garcia for inviting me to be here. It is a real pleasure to be here with you, but it's also a real challenge because, as Jose said, I'm not a computer scientist, I'm an ecologist. I studied environmental sciences, I did my PhD in ecology, and I kind of met machine learning while I was working and trying to work with Birdsongs. So my talk today is going to be first about a little bit of biology, an example of a machine learning algorithm that I wrote, and I repeat, I'm an ecologist, so you can do much better than me for sure. Then I will tell you some machine learning approaches that have been already developed for birdsong recognition, especially deep learning. And then I want to end my talk telling you about some other fields, not only birds, but also other animals and other aspects of the ecology where we could collaborate and do a lot of things together. And finally, I want to end with the challenges we have. So I give you some ideas, maybe you can help me, okay? So, well, if you don't hear me in the back, just make like this and I will, okay? So why we should recognize bird songs? Well, the ultimate aim is this one, conservation. And here in the bottom it says management. We want to preserve populations, bird populations, animal populations. That is what we work for in ecology. And to do that, we need to have a lot of information. And especially, very especially, we need to have information about 2 things. The first one is to understand the biology of the species. And the second one is to monitor the biodiversity. With this information, we can develop different management actions, and as ultimate goal, again, is to preserve these populations, okay? And I'm gonna be telling you a little bit about species biology and biodiversity, why to do that. First, we need to understand why we should study bird songs. Why are they important, right? So why are the songs aimed for? Basically for communications. Birds sing to alert that there's a predator coming. Hey, there's a predator, run away. Also to contact among other individuals. I am here, how are you doing today? To signal their territory, the area where they live. This is the coolest one, to find a mate, right? These beautiful songs that we hear while we go outside normally is because they are trying to attract a female. And if they succeed, they will have hungry chicks that will also make a lot of songs. All these songs or sounds that birds make are aimed for communication. And there's one thing that people normally doesn't know, which is really important for us. And that is that birds learn their songs. Not all of them, some. Hummingbirds, parrots, and this is like a group of birds which are called passerines. You don't need to remember that thing. But basically it's about 40% of the species of the world, of bird species, they learn their songs. Other species like these ones, they don't do it. And this is really important. Why? Because when we share information with our offspring, with other people, in the population, we do it 2 ways. We do it through our genes, right? I have blue eyes because my dad has blue eyes. So we are sharing information. But we can do it also with songs. And that's faster. We can learn from a lot of individuals. We can learn from individuals from far away. And the exchange of information is really fast. So things like this can happen. Imagine a bird that is singing loud to attract a female. The first thing that needs to happen is that the female recognizes that male from their own population, their own species, right? If an individual sings a lot and starts to sing very different because they have learned the songs from a different population, maybe the female doesn't recognize the male, and they don't breed. There is not like a physical limit for breeding. They can breed without problems, but because they don't speak the same language, they won't do it. And things like this can happen. Imagine we have here a population, and they start singing different things while they're moving. They're singing different things while they're moving, and when they come here, this is like a barrier. Imagine this is like a big mountain. When they come here, they don't recognize each other, and they don't breed. What we get at the end is two new species. Because at the end, the two populations never breed to each other, and they will accumulate changes, mutations, that's genetically, and create two different populations. So communication, the songs, can create new species. And that's really important for us, for ecologists and biologists. And not only that, there are a lot of species. This is a review of papers. Oops, sorry. Here. A review of papers that are relating acoustic traits, which is who sings the best, the nicest song, with individual quality. And what it says is like the male that sings fancier and more beautiful songs, they are also the ones with higher quality. They are the ones with less parasites. They are the ones with higher number of offspring, chicks. They are the ones who have a higher probability of survival. So singing nice songs has also a lot of consequences for the bird. And this is because to sing a nice song, a beautiful and complex song, you need to have a lot of, to put a lot of effort and energy in your brain. And that only the individual with a high quality can do that. And there is one more thing on all this story, and it's humans. We also can affect bird song. This is an experiment I studied with a lot of bird species here. And this is the moment in the day where they start singing. Birds start singing early in the morning, they sing a lot. And this is what happens when you have an airport. If you live close to the airport, which is the black line, you start singing earlier than if you live far away from the airport. And that's to try to avoid the noise of the planes in the morning. So we are also changing bird song. And this is what we work with. It's called a spectrogram. So we have time here. This is frequency at which the animal vocalizes. And the stronger color means that the vocalization has more power. And I think you can hear it. This bird here singing. And you see there are a lot of different notes that it can sing. So this is what we study when we are studying bird songs. And we will study through different ways. I will show you. But first, before moving to bird song analysis, I will also tell you why is it important to monitor biodiversity, the other part, okay? So in order to manage a population, we need to know if the population is increasing or decreasing, right? We need to have something like this. This is years, and this is the amount of change in the population of these three species. And I think you all can see that these populations are declining. If they are declining, we need to do something for them, to save them, right? To try to recover them. We can also have something like this. We can have measures of birds in different habitats, like forests, open land, shrubland, and woodlands. And if we know that this species is more present in forests than in open lands, we need to manage these forests for this species to preserve it. So all this management is related to the information on where the species is and how abundant it is, how many individuals are there. To manage, we need to protect habitat, management, restoration, blah, 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 a lot of things. That costs a lot of money. And we don't have much money in ecology. You guys have more money. People put a lot of money in artificial intelligence and those things. So far, we've been going to the field. This is me when I was doing my PhD, imagine, so many years ago. Going to survey birds to count where they were. To do things like this, like species distribution maps, a species abundance map, which are used for management. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. In people going to the field, being there for a lot of hours. You can only survey birds in the morning because it's when they sing. So normally it's from 7 to 11 in the morning. So it's a lot of time. But some years ago, we got this one. That's autonomous recording unit. I call it Song Meter, which is the brand. Basically, it's a machine that you can go to the field, you leave it there. It will record anything around it. And it will record whenever you program it to do it. So I can tell it, record 1 minute every 5 minutes, from 7 in the morning to 11 in the morning, and then again from 5 to 7 p.m. And it will do it automatically for weeks and weeks with no one there. But then I go back to the field with this thing, with a lot of recordings, and I need to process it. I can do it manually. I can listen to the birds and try to find who was there. But it's much better, and it costs much less money if we do an algorithm and identify it automatically, right? So just to wake you up a little bit, this is one of the species I was studying. This is Hawaiian crown. It is extinct in the wild. It's only in captivity right now. So we have very nice recordings we did with this machine. And I think it's really cool. It was just to wake you up. Okay, that's about bird songs. Now I'm going to be telling you, so that's why it is important to monitor bird songs and do it automatically, okay? Now I'm going to give you an example of a bird song recognition algorithm that I wrote, and I repeat, I'm an ecologist. And it's just an example of how you can do things very simple and very bad, and from where you can start and help me to do much better things. So I published this in 2015. It's already old, I guess. And the main idea was, so we ecologists need to do this. We need to do it fast, and we need to have an algorithm, but it's very hard for us to program. So I was trying to do something of bioacoustics for dummies, so everybody with a little bit of programming knowledge, I did this in R, could be able to do it. And I did this, I was a postdoc in Hawaii when I was doing this. And this is really important because there is no previous data on this species. No one has been there studying the bird songs, so no one really knew much about them. In Hawaii, we have, in the island where I was living, there are 5 volcanoes. And the population of these species live up in the volcanoes. What happens is that it's really hard to get there. For some of the areas, it is so hard that you have to be helicopter in. Then you would put the machine, the recorder, and then you would go back, and some months later, you would go back by helicopter and take the machine. So imagine how important this is for us, to be able to do it automatically. So this is the species I wanted to study. It's called amakihi, and this is the spectrogram of this species. It is quite simple. I started with a simple species because it was my first time doing this. This is how it sounds. Really cool one. And this is what I did. This is my algorithm. First, I used like a built-in program to make little bits of the spectrogram. The program is called Raven. It's a program for song analysis. What I would do is basically I will have this spectrogram, and I will choose small pieces of the spectrogram where you had sounds or some vocalizations. Then I will manually go there and say, this is not a makihi, this is not a makihi, this is a makihi, this is not a makihi. Okay? So I will get some label data. And then with this program, I could calculate about 25 parameters about each of those little boxes. When I was doing this selection, I would, because the program was not really good with selecting them, I would also classify them in really good selections or bad selections with overlap, okay? And then I use a support vector machine to classify the bird songs. A makihi, this is a makihi, this is not a makihi. I will train the algorithm, and it will tell me with a 86% accuracy if my vocalization was a makihi or not. It was, my algorithm was really good when the selection was good, and when selection was poor, it was okay. But this was my training data. And then I took some data that we took by helicopter in these places, very remote places. there were areas where these species had been extincted, and we were thinking that maybe there were like a few individuals there, but no one has been able to listen to them. So we went there, and I used my algorithm, and I got 8 confirmed amakihi in the area. So it was the first time after 25 years that someone could find this species in this area. So for us, it's really important, this kind of information. Okay? So this is what they did. But there's a lot of people working with machine learning. And they've used a lot of different approaches. And I'm just going to name a few of them. The first one is they have used like hidden Markov models. This guy here, they did something similar to what I did. They selected tiny bits of the spectrogram with some characteristics, and then they classified the songs with hidden Markov models. In this other approach with multi-instance, multi-label framework, they would not do like these boxes, but they would select exactly the vocalizations and use the shape of the vocalization to select. So the first one here, like me, we use the characteristics of the vocalization in the box. And here they use the shape of the vocalization. They have used also things such as random forest approaches, kind of decision trees. And there are even papers that have compared different approaches, different machine learning algorithms. This one compared 3, linear discriminant analysis, decision tree, and support vector machine. And here the support vector machine is the one more efficient. This is why I use support vector machines, because of this paper. But for sure, the approach that is more successful in general is deep learning. This is what is being the best for Birdsong recognition. You cannot see here in the bottom, there is, this is a figure of a paper that came out 3 years ago in a journal in ecology about how to use deep learning for ecologists. And explains step by step, like a bioacoustic for dummies, how this deep learning can be used in ecology. And they have this flow chart when you can see the different steps. I'm just going to focus on a few of them because I know you know how to do deep learning or machine learning approaches. First thing, important thing is that you need to have a lot of data. And as I will show you later, it is kind of easy to find a lot of data for birds. In this kind of analysis, we normally want to have a supervised learning because we want to know a species, so we normally need training data. There are different ways to create your model architecture. The one that is working better is this convolution neural network. But they have been used other like recurrent neural networks and even some custom networks that also work very well for some species. There are a lot of frameworks that have already been used also to model, to get, for this Birdsong recognition, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras, you name it, you know better than me all of this. I can only use R, that's the only language I know, so I'm a bit limited, but I can talk to you guys. And then the last thing you need once you have a model is a lot of data. And that's really cool for birds, because you can use existing public databases. There are some databases such as this Sheno Canton or the McKinley Library. There's this lab in the United States, it's called the Cornell Lab. They have a lot of songs and with labels. It's not always so straightforward to get the information, but in theory you can reach them and it will send you a lot of training data. But if you don't have training data for a few species, we have these things which is called crowdsourcing. Basically it is, hey, I need songs for this species here and I don't have it. And there are a lot of bird nerds out there that will go out and record them for you. So you just put a call in the Zooniverse, for example, platform, or just contact some bird nets, I know a lot of them, and they will try to get you those recordings. And of course, you can use like data augmentation, data generation, I mean, all those things that you normally use. So we have a lot of data, we train the model, we check the accuracy, if we like it, we use it, if not, we try to refine it again, like always, okay? Now I'm gonna tell you about this guy. This is an app that you can put in your phone, I have it in my phone, it's called BirdNet. And if you hear a bird singing everywhere, you just put the phone there, record it a little bit, and it will tell you which species is it. Of course, depends on where you are. It has 948 bird species. It uses that Xenocanto database that I told you before. The precision is almost 80%, which is quite good. And it uses artificial neural networks with 157 layers and 27 million parameters. So it's quite complex. But anybody can use it in the phone. And indeed, it's quite good. This is for 2 species. This is over a year. And this is the number of detections. In blue is the number of times the bird vocalized. And in red is what the algorithm found. So it's not exactly the same, but it's good to tell you like annual patterns. So it's very useful for us, ecologists. Okay, so up to here, I've been talking only about birds. I hope I have convinced you that they are cool, and maybe you can study them. But there are other animals, a lot of them indeed, that make sounds. For example, some mammals, aquatic mammals, marine mammals, such as whales or dolphins, they communicate with vocalizations. And there are a lot of important, really good ones, acoustic recorders that you can put underwater. So you can also study populations of these animals, how they move, what they do, how they interact with each other, etc. Of course, frogs and these kind of amphibians, they make sounds. Some insects, they don't make sound, but they do like this with their legs, and you can hear it, right? So like crickets or cicadas, they make high sounds, and you can also study them. And then with bats, we have specific recorders for bats, so that they record in their frequency. We cannot hear them, but we can record them, because this is the kind of waves that they use for echolocation, right? In case someone doesn't know. Bats use, they send a wave, and when they hit the wall or something, they receive it back, and they know there is something there. They don't see very well, but they echolocate with these waves. So you can record that, and you can use it to study the populations. There are other really cool things that we can do with sounds for ecology. So imagine in the upper plot, this is like a forest that has been burned, and this is the same forest 20 years later after a restoration. In the lower part, you have a spectrogram. This is 24 hours, and this is the frequency, and these are all the vocalizations you find in 24 hours in this place. Look at this. If we compare this plot here, this spectrogram here, with this spectrogram here, would you say that the restoration was successful or not? Yes, right? It was successful. So you can compare and measure restoration efforts using also bird sounds or animal sounds. And then we have these guys here, camera traps. These are some cameras that about this size, more or less. You can put them in a tree or anywhere in the field, and every time they detect movement in front of them, in front of the lens, they will take a picture or a couple of pictures, or they will make a video. We have images like this. You see the animal here? It's a fox. But sometimes we leave them in the field for months, and we have thousands of videos and thousands of images. So it's really important to pre-filter the images, at least, to delete all those videos that have nothing, because sometimes we just have like a branch moving all the time, and you have 5,000 pictures of a branch moving, which is really annoying. And then you can also do things like this. This is a carcass of an animal here, and this is like a time lapse of all the animals that have been going there to eat it, to forage and eat. This is in India, so that's why we have some cool animals. So imagine we have to identify every animal manually. You can do it. I mean, it's really cool to see the videos. But it will help a lot if you can identify the species that are there automatically. And look at the patterns and the way they move. You can do it very well automatically. You can even identify the behaviors, what they are doing in the images. This guy is eating most of it. This is the same paper than before of the flowchart, and it tells us a lot of things that can be done with deep learning in ecology. Identify individuals that are sick. You can identify, for example, if they have been burned, or they have sarna, which is like a parasite, or they have something, they have like a broken leg or anything. You can count animals, estimate density, which is very important, diversity even. If you have a camera, and every animal that moves in front of the camera takes a picture, you can estimate how many different species are in a place. And this has important implications for the conservation of these populations. This is really cool for us, identifying individuals even for these species. Look at this. This is a tiger, and the way they have the lines, you can make the patterns here. Different animals have different patterns, even like the way the tails, the scars, different scars that they have. Well, if they have a collar, of course, that's easier. But you can use machine learning and deep learning especially to try to identify individuals, to see if the same individual goes back to the same place, if it moves to another place, how far they move. It's important for us to know what we call the home range, which is how far an individual moves within a daily basis. That's really important for us. And you can do all of these things using deep learning approaches. So I hope I convinced you that you can do a lot of things. The thing is, deep learning for me is very difficult. I mean, I don't know how to program very much. But you guys can do a lot of things, so please help us. Okay, last thing, future challenges. What are the main challenges we've been finding when doing this kind of analysis? Variability. This is the birdsong I analyzed, and this is another one I studied, and I was thinking, yeah, I should do an algorithm to identify it, but look at the birdsong. It's crazy, and it changes a lot. There are so different, many different notes that are very different in this species. Indeed, I counted 250, manually I did it, 250 different notes, which are the different symbols that this bird species can do in like a 10 by 10 meters area. So this is really, when there's a high variability in the vocalizations, it's very difficult for us to identify them. Another thing is that, as I said, we need a lot of training data, a lot of it. And sometimes it's really difficult to find it. Imagine, for example, you have a species that is very far away in a very remote area. It's really, I mean, I had to be helicoptered into a place to get data. So that's not easy. That's not cheap. That happened in the United States because they have a lot of money, but that will never happen here in Spain, for example. We don't have that much money. Or rare species, species that are not very common. Imagine there is a population, we have a lot of population, unfortunately, for which we only have a few individuals left. It's very hard to find it. I remember I was in Hawaii, and my boss told me, yeah, you need to do an algorithm for this species for which we haven't seen in 10 years in the wild, and we have 3 vocalizations of the species. And I was like, I don't think it's gonna, I don't think it's gonna happen. So it's hard for it. It's hard. Maybe you find a better way. Maybe it's possible, but I was just not able to do it. Maybe with deep learning you can do it. And there are other things. We have some birds that imitate others. And they do it so well that I personally, when I hear them, I doubt. I'm not sure. So this, so you go to the field and you hear, oh yeah, this is like, I don't know, a mockingbird. And then it's like, it's not really a mockingbird. It's doing some weird things. And then it's another species which imitates bird songs. And you know about parrots, right? Parrots doing talking like people. So some of these birds can do it also. It's really difficult to differentiate for us. Audially, I'm not sure about deep learning. Maybe deep learning is better. Who knows? Then we have these things of identifying several species at the same time. So normally, most of the algorithms, that's the way BirdNet, that app I was telling you about, works. Normally, when you have the algorithm, they do one algorithm for each species. And then they run all the algorithms in batch. So you have your vocalization, they run all of them. They normally subset them because of your geoposition, but they just run the, I don't know, 50 species that are possible in your area. That takes a lot of time. So maybe one possibility, and we've been talking about trying to identify different species within only one algorithm, that will probably be faster than running a lot of them in a batch. Especially if you have a vocalization and you don't know where it is from. Because if you need to run the 900 species, one after the other, that takes a lot of time. And if you need to analyze, I don't know, 5,000 vocalizations without knowing where they are from, it's really difficult. It will take a lot of time. Then we have this. This is a spectrogram from an area, and there are a lot of things here, right? These are probably frogs or something like this. This is probably crickets or something like this. These are different species of birds. And this is not the worst one I've seen. I've seen some, but I couldn't find them, which is basically all black. So birds in the morning, they get up in the morning and they sing a lot. They have this morning chorus, we call it. And they start singing and singing and singing. And it's the moment when they sing most, they signal their territory, they're trying to find a female, and they sing all at the same time. And that's really hard to separate vocalizations. Because you need to be able to make tiny bits of them and to see what you're going to identify. And you have everything one over the other, everything's mixed. And it's not easy to do it. And the last one I have is to identify dialects. I remember that I was telling you that birds can make dialects. They can start singing different things because they learn. The same way that they are learning different things, they can have dialects. It's the same like humans. And if an individual of the same species is singing a different thing and the other one is singing a different thing, as I explained you, that has implications. They can create different species. So it is important to detect earlier, before there is like a speciation event, if the species are singing different things, if they are singing in different dialects. But they are the same species, singing more or less similar things. So the differences normally are very subtle. And if it is already difficult to identify some species, imagine identifying the dialects. I think that's the most challenging thing we may have. But I think we're doing it with humans, right? We know how to detect different languages and probably different dialects. So there may be a way to do it. I just don't know. You need to find me the way. Okay, so the main take-home message of my talk is we can collaborate. We can do a lot of things together. So please, let's work together and help us save nature. Before finishing, I need to thank a lot of people here. I started studying bioacoustics just by chance because they told me, do you want to go back to Brazil to live in a 20 million city, or you want to go to Hawaii to live there for a couple of years? You need to study birdsong. I said, yes, birdsong is great. But then I fell in love with birdsongs because it's a really cool thing and you learn a lot of interesting things. So I would like to thank NSF, which was the funding agency, University of Hawaii in Hilo, where I did most of my bioacoustics work. I have a Ramon y Cajal grant from the Spanish Ministry of Science. We also have a project about this. We also have a Marie Curie fellowship to do exchange here in Europe. And I was kind of forgetting my bioacoustics work, working in something else, when I started talking with Jose Garcia, and we saw a way of collaborating, and thanks to him personally also, I'm back to bioacoustic work, and I'm very happy to have done that. So thank you very much, and now I will take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if you know about Kaggle challenges, because Kaggle challenges, basically they have machine learning competitions, and they give some tasks and then people compete. So for the last 3 years, the Cornell University, where the BirdNet comes from, they have this challenge, annual challenge for birdsong classification. And for example, the last one is the deadline is in 7 days. There are 1,000 teams competing for $50,000. I think also wrote down a lot of future works, and in these past challenges, I could identify, for example, the future learning that you said in a very small data set, from very small data set, identifying the species, or the identifying multiple species, or the different dialects. These are tasks that are in these challenges already. So from a machine learning, pure machine learning researcher's point, I don't really see how I can publish new algorithms based on this. So I was wondering if you use these challenges or the results of these challenges in your work, and how do you plan to do collaborations in a way to attract talents that are focusing on the algorithmic perspective of machine learning?
I have never participated in those. I know about them because my boss in Hawaii, he's been sending Hawaii bird songs to identify. So one of these challenges was about Hawaii bird songs, and it's with his recordings. So I know about them, but I don't really know a lot how they work and so on. But of course, I think it is really important that people start doing those challenges, and we talk with people from Cornell. So we have some collaborations. We are starting some collaborations with them, and they know what are the limits and what are the challenges. So I guess they are trying to put those in those kind of challenges that you were talking about. I just don't really know how they turn out, if they really succeeded or not.
Yeah. So I think if you have a problem, for example, the identifying the different species in one sound, if I would be a researcher working with you, the first I would do is look up this challenge, download their current state-of-the-art data machine learning model, and I don't know what's the next step, because that would probably solve for a certain level your problem, and then you just submit it to a conference, or do we plan to do machine learning algorithmic update on it, or it's more like you would just want to apply already existing projects?
Personally, I always publish what I do. So I would try to do, if I do something like this, I would try to publish a paper about that. And then the good thing is that we have contact with the managers in these areas. And you can not only publish a paper, but also help, because you will share that information with the managers, and they will be able to use it for management. For example, I have contracts with the Ministry of Environment here in Spain to monitor some species. So we can apply those things. So I would first publish the paper and then apply those things to management directly because of a contract with the ministry to monitor a species or density or whatever.
Yeah, I think that would be really nice to see how these challenges, the results of these challenges can be applied to actually save the planet.
Exactly the one from Hawaii. I don't know the other ones, but the one from Hawaii, I know it was very important. There is a lot of money in Hawaii for conservation because there are a lot of military people there, and the army has a lot of money. So after the challenge, I know that they use all the algorithms that they created to monitor biodiversity in Hawaii. They have like these military camps. They put their recordings there, and they see how, when the militaries do these training things, they see how they affect the bird songs. So they are being used for management, indeed. These ones, I don't know the others.
Thank you, that sounds good.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other question?
Hello. Well, I was wondering if for the, let's say for transforming the sounds into a graphical representation, in this case you used spectrograms. I'm curious if you use another technique that, for instance, use also or combines the magnitude and the phase of the sound, because at least in digital signal processing, we can see the sounds or the audio as some sort of transformation to the Fourier transform. I'm not, sorry for the technicism, perhaps. Okay, so we could find some interesting info in the phase as well. So I'm wondering if you also explored those or just stick to the spectrograms.
I didn't, personally. I think I've seen something about that lines, but most of the papers I've read so far, they use spectrograms in two ways. They use the way I did it, with measuring the sound in different ways, but sometimes they use it as a image. So they process the image, not the sound parameters. But not the way you tell me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that has been done. I have to look for it, yeah. But yeah, I think that can be another approach. That's what I was needing, new approaches. Maybe that's the one that works better.
Nice, thanks.
Any other question?
So thank you for the talk. I think that for me at least, I always have the idea of machine learning and deep learning related to robotics and this kind of things. So having another point of view is pretty interesting. So I have a question. So is the current state of the art able not only to separate among different species, but among different individuals? And would that be interesting or not?
Definitely. The same way that I was telling you that you can identify individuals with the stripes of the animals, it is really important for us to try to identify individuals with the vocalizations. That would be really, really good. I've seen, so it is possible, I've seen that done before, but only in some situations where you have a close population. That means that the individuals of the population doesn't move. When in that situation, you can sample of the vocalizations of all the individuals in the population, and then for some species, you may be able to identify individuals. So that has been done in captivity. But in nature, that's really hard. First of all, because individuals move a lot. And then we have these things about imitating other birds, and then you have these birds that they change the way they sing. So you know the thing that in Spain, in the south, they speak like they don't pronounce the last part of the words, right? And people, when live in the south of Spain, they change also the accent and they start losing the last part of the words. Something like that happens with birds. So if the ones that learn their songs, of course, not the others. Those birds, if they move to another population where they sing a different dialect or the different vocalizations, they may change. They change to the dialect that is more cool in the area. And we've seen that already. So in those cases, it's almost impossible to identify individuals because they change what they vocalize. But for others, it is possible, and it's really useful for us.
Thank you.
More questions? Okay, so thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you.